All Home DIY Dad. Today we're going to show you how to make this awesome Halloween prop. It is a Coffin Crypt fogger. It's very eye-catching, people love it, the kids love it, and it's super spooky. The good news about this project is you need very minimal tools in order to do it. A decent amount of materials, but it's very simple to do, and we'll show you how. One caveat with this is you can decide if you want to do the chiller piece of this or not. My climate is very cold. Around Halloween, it's pretty chilly out, so the chiller part doesn't work as well. But if you are in a warmer climate, it will work great. So let's jump into it. Let's walk through what you're going to need for tools and materials for this project. Tools-wise, it's pretty minimal. For cutting the foam sheets that I'll go over in a bit, a cutting tool of some type that would work with foam. I used an oscillating multi-tool, made the job real quick, sliced through it like butter. A little overkill, otherwise you can use a razor blade. I did end up using a blade for some of the design on the foam as well, so you're going to need a little razor blade, a drill with miscellaneous bits that you're going to need, including some bits for drilling holes of whatever size tubing you end up using. I'll explain later. And then also whatever size you pick for your PVC that I'll walk through, a hole saw bit. So it'll make a nice clean hole that you need. And then again, miscellaneous drill bits. Also going to need for the adhesive caulking, a caulk gun, and then a good straight edge. I used a good long level, helps with cutting the foam, making a nice straight edge, and I'll mark on the foam. And then materials. Materials list is a lot more than tools. Tools are very minimal. First, fog machine. We're making a Crypt Coffin fogger. You're going to need a fog machine. I've used a small one. This is a 400 watt. I also have a big one that's 1800 watts, I believe, or 1500. I think either 15 or 18. And I'm actually going to experiment a little bit on which one works better. I kind of think the smaller one might actually work better for the cooling effect. And then you're going to need foam. Pretty simple. You can use kind of any different size foam that you think will work. I wanted to make sure it had some rigidity. You're moving it around, storing it and all that stuff. I didn't want to get the real thin inch stuff. So I got 1.5" foam. So went to Home Depot, found the cheapest 4x8 sheets of foam I could get that I thought would be strong enough. So I got 3 4x8 sheets of the insulating foam. You're going to need some all-weather adhesive. Kind of looks like caulk, but it's adhesive, extra strength, all-weather, because this is outside and it's stored at high temperatures during the summer and all that, so I want to make sure it still works. You're going to need some type of mesh material for using inside the chiller if you're choosing to do the chiller. This is actually made for gutters, put on top of gutters to keep leaves and debris out. Worked really well. It's really easy to cut and work with. You're going to need some LED lights if you're choosing to put LEDs on them like I did. Makes a nice glow effect when the fog's coming out. I'll post links to this on Amazon along with any other products I have, whatever links I've got. Spray paint. You're going to need a decent amount of spray paint depending on how big you make your crypt. I used about 3 cans for the main color, and I really like the stone gray for Rust-Oleum. I was hoping I'd find a matte color for stone gray, but they just have satin from what I've seen at my local store. I think it looks a little bit more like a stone crypt from a couple of the other colors I tested, and then black to kind of do a little bit of an accent for the cracks. You're going to need tape, sealing up some edges with the PVC and some other spots, some good strong tape like duct tape. You're going to need some good screws, all-weather screws. I just use deck screws. It's nothing crazy, it's just going into foam. But having good long ones to stick in as best you can, because this stuff is so light with the wind and everything. It's nice to have something that'll fasten decent. Also, going to want to get, for the chiller, if you're going to do that, foam window seal, stuff with that adhesive on the back. It's basically like a rubber foam that you put on the inside of the edge of the lid for the box, which I'll show you in a second, and creates a nice seal so that all the fog doesn't try to seep out in that top edge. Also going to want some PVC. You don't need a lot, probably like a 6-inch to 8-inch piece. I used 2-inch PVC and then I matched it with the hole saw. And that is for the chiller box. So I'll show you this in more depth, but it's basically just a normal storage box, hole drilled in it. That's where the PVC goes. The fogger is going to enter, and then holes drilled on the bottom for the fog to come out. And that's where you're going to stick whatever tubing you decide to use in. So you're going to want to get the drill bit sizes for whatever tubing you're going to want to use. I had this irrigation line laying around. I have a couple different sizes of it. I'm making a couple different chiller boxes. But this worked really well. It's pretty small actually. The opening is probably only 1/2 inch. I thought maybe it was going to be too narrow to do, but it worked pretty well. So you're going to probably need about 20-30 feet of some tubing of some kind. If you don't have anything laying around, box stores have those reels of tons of different types of tubing that you can use. You just get the cheapest stuff. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. And then the skeleton heads I bought off Amazon. I'll post a link if they still have them. A lot of this stuff just sells out with Halloween time, so it's kind of hit or miss. But these are plastic, and I wanted to find something that I could cut so that they would be flat on the back and stick onto the foam, and then have a hollow inside so that the fog can come through and then come out. So I'll post a link to those. You can get a lot of different sizes. I went with kind of a medium size. I didn't think I want to go any smaller than these, or they don't really stick out very well on the side of the crypt. And that's kind of it. It's not a huge list, not a terribly hard project to do. You're not working with wood or anything solid. You're just using foam and adhesive and kind of making it fun. You can make it your own. All right, your first step is going to kind of figure out the sizing that you're going to want to make your coffin or your crypt. I did mine about 5.5 feet long, 2.5 feet tall, and about 3 feet wide. Worked good for the dimensions with the panels and made it so I'm not wasting too much, but I also have enough left over to do some of the other accessories on this. As far as cutting goes, I found that this multi-tool worked really well. Cut through like butter. You're going to want to mark it out with a straight edge, make a nice straight line so you can stay on that line, at least make it somewhat straight. If you don't make it somewhat straight, then some of the fog will end up seeping out through the seams and where those waves are. So I did the big pieces first. You always, when you're cutting material, you're going to want to use the pieces that are the largest first so that you make sure you have what you need at the end and you're not having to go run to store and get some more materials. I found it helpful to use something below the foam so that you can cut it and not worry about hitting the floor. If you have a tabletop with something you could put underneath, that would work fine as well. I just used a 2x4. Once you get everything all cut, you can start assembling. I used simple 4-inch long deck screws, put a bunch of them in on the sides and the bottom. It holds it together pretty well. If you have a decent place to store this for the off season, you could also just use the all-weather construction adhesive. That works really well to bond the foam together. But I have to store this flat, otherwise I don't have enough space to do it. So I'm just using screws, and I'll pop those out and just kind of put it all back together each season. I decided to add some extra dimensions to the top to the crypt. I had a bunch of paneling left over, so I cut a couple pieces that would fit on the top and almost act like a little bit of a set in, little bit of a dimension. So I put that on top, cut it to size so that it would kind of square off in the middle of the cover. I think it ended up looking good, like it was a stone cap on top of the cover for the crypt. I've seen a lot of other designs with these crypts and can really do anything you like. You can even do a whole big bottom piece that adds another dimension to this. You can add thicker pieces in to make it look like different stone. thicknesses to make it more realistic. I'm not all that artistic, so I'm keeping mine fairly simple, um, and you can kind of go all out as much as you'd like. To, to fasten down that top piece, I used construction adhesive. I didn't put any screws in it. The all-weather stuff should hold up just fine, but you could pop a couple screws in as well to keep it all fastened down. All right, it's time to be artistic. I put some cracks to make it look like stone here. You have to take off the film first from the foam if you have film because the spray paint won't stick. And then you could cut some cracks in. I sprayed those cracks with some black spray paint. I should have gone a little lighter on it. And then you take that stone colored spray paint and you kind of cover it up with that. I did a few coats real light just to make sure I didn't eat away at the foam too much. This spray paint doesn't eat too bad at the foam. Some other ones will eat a lot. So I'll post a link to this specific spray paint if you're interested. But yeah, so I put a nice couple layers on and it started looking a little bit like weathered stone. I think it turned out pretty good. Again, I should have gone a little lighter on the black. All right, so now's the time where you got to figure out if you want to do the chiller piece of this project. Um, I'm just trying to do it. We'll see if it works with the temperatures we get for Halloween. But that's where you decide, do I need to use this box or should I just use a PVC pipe, pipe it in, and then have those black cords running out of the PVC? So you can make that choice now. And I'm going to show you how to make the chiller. And if you're not going to do the chiller, again, just do a piece of PVC, drill some holes in it, and have those tubes coming out of that. I would not recommend just putting the smoke into the foam because the foam doesn't seal very well on all the edges. So the foam just, the smoke will just come out everywhere. All right, let's make the chiller box. Again, you can use this without the ice in it to chill it. You can use a PVC, whatever you want to do. The first step is you're going to want to pop that hole for the 2-inch PVC. And then on the other side, you're going to want to put the holes in for however many outputs you're going to have with the skeleton heads or whatever you're choosing to do. And you're going to want to match that hole size as best you can to what tubing that you have. I found a good size here, so I did 7 holes. I did 3 skulls on each of the long sides and 1 on the short side, and I'm leaving one side without. That's where my fogger is going to enter the box. So you put those holes in, and then you got to get this mesh. This mesh is to stop any of the ice from getting into any of the holes and plugging them while it's in use. So I did this the hard way, put some piece of wood in and screwed those in tight through the mesh. You could also just use the construction adhesive. If I had to do it again, I'd probably just do that and let it sit there and dry, but I didn't want to have to wait to work on the rest of it. So I used the wood. Pretty simple. 7 holes on one side, 1 bigger one on the other side. And then you put it in your box and you connect all the tubes and cut them to length. And then you can start working on the skeleton heads. What I did with the skeleton heads is they were round and hollow, so I cut the backs of them off at about the same spot with a miter saw. You can use a hacksaw, and so I could attach them to the little pieces that I had cut to attach to the box. And I also cut nice holes in each of their eyes so that the fog comes out of their eyes. So I'm using construction adhesive here, all-weather stuff. Kind of looks like caulk, but it's not. It's really strong adhesive, and glued them to each of the squares. And I pre-drilled those squares with the hole the same size as the tubing so that when you go to attach it to your box, you can kind of poke that through and it kind of holds it in there nice when you do it. So just run some adhesive around all the edges, seal it up nice so no fog leaks out. Mine had little holes in the bottoms of the skulls, so I had to kind of take a little extra adhesive and plug those holes up nice. So this is your end result. Got each little square piece of fake stone with a hole in the back and these skulls glued to the front with holes in the eyes. Once those are all dried up and glued tight, you can attach them to the sides of your box. You got to drill the holes where you want them for the box for each skull to fit. I ran the tubing through a little bit and then did screws on each corner. I did this because I wanted to have something that was going to hold tight, at least for a little while before that adhesive could set. And the tube being poked through the back pushes a little bit on the foam, so you just want to make sure you have it held tight. So I put screws in, and then I put adhesive on, stuck it on where the hole is, push the pipe through into kind of the back of the skull, not too far, and then do the rest of them. You let them sit and dry, and then you can come back through and kind of spray over them with the spray paint to get that, uniform stone look. So here's the final result with all of them tagged in and glued up and sprayed. All right, I also added some LED lights to the underside of the cover for the crypt. Thought that was a good spot for them. It kind of angles it down towards the skulls to accent those and shows the fog really nice. I used waterproof LED strips, and they're color changing, and they have adhesive on the back, so they stick really nice to that foam. All right, so here's the chiller with the seal I put around the top edge. I used about a 1/4 inch adhesive backed foam sealer, and then made a nice seal so it doesn't come out the top and sides of the crypt too bad. Here's a nice test outside. I realized that it was way too cold out the night that I tested it, probably about 40 degrees. So the chiller part doesn't really work all that well when it's that cold, but sure does put out some awesome smoke, and really has gotten a lot of attention in the neighborhood. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel and post any questions in the comments.